Hey lady, editing Dr. Sherunda Simone here with a quick clarification. When I mentioned that God did not answer my prayers, I mean He did not say yes to my prayers. So keep that in mind as you're listening to today's episode.
They think I'm fraudulent, I'm mixed up with this practice, I'm going to jail. For today's episode, I'm going to be sharing my own personal story where the Lord did not answer my prayer, and I am thankful that He didn't. Hey lady, welcome back to your new favorite talk show for Christian women, Grown Lady Chat. With me, your host, Dr. Sharonda Simone. A few years ago, I started a tradition where my family and I will write on a styrofoam pumpkin what we're most thankful for. And it's so nice to go back and just see what we've been thankful for over the years. So as I was sitting and reflecting on what I would write on my pumpkin today, it got me thinking about the things that I'm grateful for that God didn't give, all of the prayers that He didn't answer. So in today's episode, I'm going to share a little story with you. I've never done a story time here on Grown Lady Chat, but I think it's a really good story because it just shows how God is watching over us at every step, even when we are pushing and pressing and trying so hard to make things happen. As Christ followers, when we have submitted our lives to God and we have given Him free reign in our lives, and we're saying, Lord, order my steps, even when we make a misstep or a mistake, He's still such a good and faithful daddy that He will course correct for us, and He will send people in our lives to literally stop us in our tracks. But before I jump into the information, of course, I want to welcome each and every one of you. If it's your first time tuning in to an episode of Grown Lady Chat, lady, let me know in the comments section so we can chat it up and I can give you a proper welcome. And for all of my ladies who continue to show up and continue to send me emails, I really enjoy reading your emails. And also those of you who chat it up on social media and you keep the conversation going, thank you very much. I really have a goal for us to reach 1,000 strong here by the end of the year. So if there is a woman in your circle, in your orbit, and you haven't shared Grown Lady Chat with her, please do so, because my mission is to reach as many women for Christ as possible. And of course, I want to help us all live amazing lives beautifully in the Lord.
Hey lady, are you a woman who loves the Lord and who also enjoys beautiful things? Well, if you are, then you are personally invited to join my exclusive Christian women's group. In this group, we chat about clothes, beauty, home decor, parenting, marriage, cooking, and of course, our Christian walk. It's Christian lifestyle all encompassing. So be sure to join by clicking the link below. I hope to chat with you soon. Now back to our show.
So let me know for the question of the day, lady, what is one prayer that you are grateful God did not answer? This story takes place over 10 years ago, so all parties involved, they're off living their lives, and I hope that they're living blessed and happy lives, okay? But I was a newlywed. We hadn't even been married for a year at this point. No, we hadn't been married for even a year. And I'd convinced my husband to leave his home and all that he knew to pretty much move down south with me for this awesome job opportunity. But I was let go from the job. No fault of my own, but I believe that the practice just expanded too quickly. And so I received a call and they said, we enjoy working with you. We love the work you're doing, but we just can't pay you. So if you come back to work, just know you will not be getting a check. Now, this was a total blow to me. I did not see this coming. And we had made some pretty big sacrifices and moves to make this job work, okay? So here it is, my husband and I, the one that I had convinced to move from Pittsburgh and his comfort zone, moved down south with me. It had taken him nearly 1 year to find a job in his field because the area where we moved to, it was highly saturated. So he found a job right as I was getting this call that, hey, you know what, we can't pay you. Well, we would have stayed there, but at the same time where we were staying, the landlord pretty much said, you can't stay here anymore either. They were having issues with the actual property. So again, it wasn't our problem, but we were told, hey, you don't have a place to stay anymore. And it was almost unsafe for us to stay there. We were scrambling, okay, really scrambling to figure out what we were going to do. I began to just submit applications to practices. Now, you have to remember that I had spent the greater part of my life working really hard to becoming a doctor, okay? And so I had achieved this great skill and I had made so many sacrifices, and here it was, my very first job, and I was let go for no fault of my own, and now we don't have a place to live either. And not to mention the fact that I have 2 bonus babies from my husband's first marriage. We were going to get them in the summer. So I'm also thinking about now what we're going to do, where we're going to be, how we're going to be living, how we're going to pay for just living with 2 children and my husband and myself. So I was applying to jobs and I got a job interview slash I got the job, and it was about 3 hours from where we were currently living. So at that time we only had 1 car. I had my black Acura, and we packed everything that could fit into the Acura. So we're talking about my husband's things and myself, all right? And if it didn't fit, we just had to give it away or walk away from it. So we pack everything into this Acura and we leave. So we drive 3 hours away, and we only had enough money at that time for like one of those long stay hotels, right? Like a suite. We get there and it's in the middle of the night, and I have my first day slash on-site interview with this job. Now, I hadn't signed the contract, but I had the contract. I was having my attorneys look over the contract, and I was pretty much settled into taking this job and beginning our life in this new area. So I was praying to God, believing. My husband was praying and believing, and we really wanted for this to work out. We also needed for this to work out. Remember, we have everything that we possess in the Acura. Okay, it's in the car. So in the middle of the night, we're here moving things out of the car into the hotel room because we're worried about people breaking into the car and taking all of our stuff. Okay, so we're in this, little hotel suite, and we have all of our belongings like huddled around us. So I'm like, okay, tomorrow, game plan. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to get this job, and then my husband's going to be able to find a job there because we're going to settle down in this new area. We're going to find a place of our own. We're going to begin life as newlyweds. Well, that was not the case. So the first day I go in and I have my crisp white coat on and I show up, and they had multiple offices in the city. So the office that they sent me to was actually where one of their current doctors, she was out that day. I don't know if she was sick or if she had an appointment, but she was not in the office. So go ahead and just fill in for her that day. And that will also give you a feel for the practice. And then we can also, begin to look at this long-term contract. All the preliminary things had already been set up. So I was good to go as far as like practicing in that area, and all of my insurance, everything was up to date, so that wasn't a problem. I go in there and I begin to see patients, and of course, it's a new environment. I don't know anybody, but I make friends quickly, so I wasn't worried about that. Well, one of the ladies who worked in the office, she was very nice to me. Ever so often I would see her looking at me and smiling, and she was very helpful and all. It was around about lunchtime, and I was thinking, okay, I can work with this. I haven't seen their other offices. I saw the main office and now the satellite office. I knew, the area was pretty nice. I said, okay, we can make this work. And I'm, texting my husband like, hey, this might work. The staff is really pleasant. The office is, a decent setup. And the main office was really nice and had some very nice amenities and just high tech, which is really good for patient care. So I was like, yeah, this might work, honey. And so we're praying and believing, and they had also promised that they would, cut me a check for however many hours that I had worked, which was really important because remember, money was funny, okay? The job that I had taken before was already a significant pay cut, but I was doing it for the bigger picture. Anyway, I really was banking on this money coming through. We were banking on it. So I'm seeing patients, everything is fine. It's about midday. I'm, taking my lunch, and when I come back from lunch, I start to see patients. Well, in the midst of seeing patients, one of the staff members, the one who kept on catching my eye and, just being very pleasant to me, she comes up to me and she's like, look, I can't say anything. I won't say anything, but here's this number. Call this number. and just ask them what they think about this place. And so she gives me this note, no name, it's just 7 digits, it's a phone number, and she says, call the number. So I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening? At this point, I'm a little on edge, but I don't feel as though I'm endangered, so I keep working. I text my husband, I'm like, something fishy is happening. He's like, are you in danger? I say, no, I'm fine, but something could be awry. So at the end of the day, I take my cell phone, I call the number. The person answers, and I'm like, hello, I'm Dr. Josie. I just got your name, well, not even your name, I just got your number from such and such practice. One of the young ladies gave me a number and said that I should ask you about your experience working here. In short, that doctor told me that the practice was being investigated for fraud, insurance fraud. And not only that, the employees knew that if you got your paycheck, let's say on a Friday, you have to race to the bank and deposit it or cash it quickly, because if you didn't get it done within a few hours, by the time you went to cash your check or deposit your check and get your money, it would not be available. Like, they would say there's no money to give you. And I was like, wait, what? No, this can't be true. Because remember, I've already seen the main practice and they're booming, bustling. I mean, I'm seeing multiple doctors and I'm thinking, okay, is this like a charade? What is going on? I've also seen one of their satellite practices and I see employees and I see patients coming in and I'm doing my billing. So, I mean, clearly there is, money exchange. Yo, I was so stressed out by this little 5-minute phone call. And I was like, okay, well, can you give me more detail? And the person was like, no, all I'm saying is run for the hills. You don't want this drama. You don't want this stress. I don't care what they say to you. It's not as it seems. And you will be investigated for insurance fraud along with all the other members in that practice. And you probably even won't get your paycheck. And I was like, hold up. I need my money. Okay, like I need this money. We are literally without any income. At this point, I was like, okay, Lord, what am I going to do? I go home that evening and my husband and I are looking at each other like, what are we going to do? God help. We need an answer. We have literally moved all of our things. Here we are, and we are expecting to start this brand new journey. And we've prayed, we've positioned ourselves. I've submitted the application. I've worked really hard. So my resume was like gleaming, and I'm in this awful situation, which is possibly the biggest scam ever. And it entails insurance fraud. I was like, no, I can't. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen, but this is not it. I'm wondering, how am I going to break this pseudo contract that we have and that we're working on? Well, I don't play with insurance fraud. I don't play with the government. I don't play with people. That's not my thing. So I just drafted up an email and basically quit and just like sent them the email. But before I sent the email off, I had to get that paycheck because they did promise that they would pay me and we needed that money, okay? So I went in there and I had my husband with me for moral support. And I basically, just approached the practice owner, and the practice owner was slated to go out of the country, okay, in like a day or so. If I didn't get that check in that moment, then chances are I would not have gotten that check. Plus, the heads up that the other doctor had given me let me know that I probably wouldn't even have gotten the money, even if I had the check, if I didn't deposit it and cash it ASAP. You know what I mean? I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, is this true? I don't have any time to do my own investigation. I don't have the latitude to sit there and do my own investigation and see if it's true or not. And I don't want to be hemmed up with a possible scandal. So I'm sitting there, I'm trying to keep my cool. My husband's like holding me because I'm that, I'm that person, okay? Like that's me. So I'm trying my best. My husband's like, really calm. He's like that calm type, but that's not my nature. So I'm like, all right, I'm trying to be respectful. I'm trying to just be calm. I don't want for them to hear anything in my voice. I want for us to finish the transaction that we've already begun. And I still haven't sent off the email yet where I'm quitting, okay? Because I needed for them to pay me for the work that I had done according to our pseudo contract, according to the contract that we had already worked on. Thank God it wasn't a binding one where I couldn't get out of because it was still the preliminary contract. So I was sitting there, I'm talking to the owner, and I'm like, okay, so can I get paid for the work I've done per our conversation? And he's like, well, you don't really need that right now, and we're going to see you anyway tomorrow. And I was like, mm-mm. And I was like, well, remember I told you that I was between jobs, which is true, I was. And so I needed the money ASAP. And so he's like, oh, yeah, you did mention that. So I was like, okay, so can you cut me the check? I'm very much like, I need my money. With a smile, my husband's like, calm down. Like, he's like literally like holding me back, under the table, like, calm down. And so finally, they cut me my check. So I race over there. I go into the bank. And I'm standing there, waiting for my turn in line. And I get up to the front and I give the teller the check. I sign it, show my ID, all of that. And I say, this is to cash. And she's like, okay, no problem. So you know how they have the little glass barrier or plexiglass barrier. And then usually there's like another area behind where they have to walk behind, right? So I'm standing there and I'm waiting and I'm thinking like, oh, I hope that I got here on time. It's not payday, so I'm hoping that there's money in their account based on what that other doctor had told me. So I'm like, oh gosh. Well, I see the same teller that I gave the check to. Imagine here's like this wall and she goes behind this wall. Next thing I know, I see her peeking from behind the wall. Okay, so she's like, like this. And she's looking at me, and she's on this like red phone. Okay, there's a red phone, and she's talking and she's looking at me suspiciously, and she's like peeking around the corner. She's talking and she has the check, and she's peeking around, talking, looking at the check, looking at me, and I was like, oh my gosh, any minute now. I thought that they were going to have the lights shut down, all the bars were going to go up automatically. There's going to be bright lights shining in my face, and it'd be like the FBI. Okay, the way she was looking at me, I was terrified. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to jail. Something was wrong with that check. They think I'm fraudulent. I'm mixed up with this practice. I'm going to jail. And I think hubby was in the car. Yeah, he did not come in with me because remember, all of our possessions are in the Acura. So we can't leave it for even a moment for fear of somebody stealing our stuff, because we had to leave the hotel because we weren't going to stay there, right? So I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm looking and I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm a good person, but nobody knows me. I am literally hundreds of miles away from the nearest anybody who knows me, who can vouch for me. And so finally she comes back and she's like, I'm sorry, we cannot cash this check. And I was like, what? I need this money. So I'm thinking like, oh my gosh. So I leave quickly because I'm thinking, okay, well, thank God, at least she didn't like rip the check up, So I take the check. I'm like, okay, thank you. And I dash out there because again, I'm worried about like FBI. So I get into the car. I am like telling Josie, I'm like my husband, a million miles a minute, what's happening? And he's like, calm down, calm down. I'm like, no, we've got to get to another bank ASAP. Like we've got to cash this check. So then we find another bank, the same branch, but it was the same type of bank, but it was a different branch inside of a supermarket. And so I walk in there and glory be to God, they cashed the check, I got the money, and we got out of Dodge. And when I tell you, we did not look back, okay? We did not look back for even a millisecond. It was like, Lot's wife and the pillar of salt. Oh no, we were out. We just headed straight down the highway, okay? We did not look back because again, I'm terrified that they think that I'm hemmed up in some scandal and I don't want to be a part of it, okay? But the prayer that God did not answer was me signing the full contract for that job at the initial interview, because that interview went really, really well. And it was as though I could have just signed the contract because the doctor and I met one-on-one. We had a great conversation and he gave me the contract and I could have easily just signed it right there and we would have been set. But I didn't sign it. Instead, I opted to take it home, discuss it with hubby, have my attorneys look over it. And I also said, well, since it's such a big, drastic move and we have nothing set up in this new area, let's do almost like an independent contractor setup for the moment. And let's work on that. And then we can parlay into a full-time employee. Thank God I did that. And thank God he didn't answer the prayer of me getting a full-time job in that moment. Lady, let me tell you, not every prayer we pray to God is one that he needs to answer with our own desires. Because had I gotten that job and had I signed on the dotted line, I would have been hemmed up in some foolishness. Clearly, there was an issue with their banking. Clearly, there was a financial issue. So I would be leaving one financial issue and hopping into a whole nother one, and possibly insurance fraud. Oh no, I'm so grateful that God did not answer that prayer. All righty, lady, that is it for today's episode of Grown Lady Chat. Again, I pray that you and your family have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving. And don't forget to tell those around you who you love and appreciate just how thankful you are that they are in your life. Don't forget, new episodes air every Monday and Thursday. So until Monday, remember, I am Dr. Sherunda Simone, and I will either see you at the top or from the top. You decide. Bye.